Welcome to Coyote's Corner. This episode is actually the last regular episode of Coyote's Corner. I'm sitting down with Michael Lang to get some background on Coyote's Corner, see why we started it, see what we wanted to accomplish, see what we did accomplish and what we learned, and ultimately to talk about why we're ending it. Thank you, Michael.
Absolutely, Toby.
So, why Coyote's Corner?
Why Coyote's Corner? Why not?
Good question.
I felt the need to put it in there.
No, it's good, because...
I really couldn't say because it's there, because it wasn't there until we decided to create it.
Yeah.
So that didn't quite seem appropriate, much as I wanted to go there.
Not true, but we did create it.
We did create it. And the real answer to the question, why Coyote's Corner? We started recording several years ago. We did our first recordings in your kitchen when you lived on Baker Street in Dover.
Yeah, back at Baker Street. Cue the 80s saxophone solo.
It was nice. It was very nice. And I can hear that saxophone solo.
I think we all can.
I'd like to think so. But really, we started there. We did a couple of stories just as how can we record in this space? We both knew a little bit.
Yeah, and we just kind of dug in. I mean, we even...
There were a couple times when you kind of sat there at the kitchen table holding the microphone because we didn't have a stand yet.
That's right.
While I kind of talked in its general direction.
Yeah, I mean, we went half-seas on gear. I bought parts, you bought other parts. We assembled it all together. And
there was usually a roll of duct tape close at hand to make it all stay in place.
I remember the light bulb moment of, I think it might have been Howard who asked, he's like, so you guys use a pop filter?
Yeah.
And no?
And we had no clue. Like, what is this mystical thing you speak of?
And one coat hanger, some bolts, a squeeze clamp, and someone's old nylons. Not ours, by the way.
I don't know where those came from.
And we had a pop filter that I think works better than the one that's on my mic right now, to tell you the truth. That was a good one.
It's possible. It was nice and thick.
Yeah.
I think we triple layered it or something.
Yeah, but it worked. But that really, for me, kind of highlights Baker Street, our Baker Street recordings.
And really, the first album of stories that I created, The Tales from the Fjords, was made with that system.
Yeah.
And Audacity for software, which we're still using today.
Exactly, but we've...
changed everything else.
We've learned a lot more about, using Audacity. I mean, the first time we figured out we could splice a word in, holy cow, that was a great day.
How amazed we were with ourselves when that happened.
Oh man, I took this word from this other take and put it in here, and then we realized how much work we made for ourselves doing that. But
yeah, when we could have just had another take and said it correctly. So we had that recording there. I mean, even learning to record the music with it was huge. I mean, again, other fun images of having my poor acoustic guitar gutted on the table with it drilling into the bottom to put in a sound hole. The microphone.
And that was a huge step up in sound for us.
And the fact that it worked, and your guitar still sounds good after doing all that. That's possibly the most amazing part. But to go from all of that, we recorded in that space for maybe a summer, maybe 6 months. Then you moved to here, Studio 417 in the Mill.
Yep.
And suddenly we realized this room is completely different. The ceiling's twice as high. We're getting echoes. What's happening? Why is this not working? And we realized that we needed to record in the closet.
Yeah, even before we recorded in the closet, we had, the closet opened up with blankets draped, and we tipped the mattress up on its end, the IKEA chair holding it up.
It all in place.
And then eventually we just said, well, you're blind anyway. You can't see. You're not afraid of confined spaces. Let's just close the closet.
And suddenly it sounded great.
Yeah, and we got some shipping blankets and lined the doors and the walls, the floor, the ceiling with them, and it was great.
And we recorded an album in there.
Yeah, that was Grandmother's Basket.
It was Grandmother's Basket. And we also did some music projects in there too, didn't we?
I don't know if we did any of the music projects in there. We did some music projects just recording live out in the living room where we just...
I remember at some point sitting in that closet with the boom mic sticking between the doors with your guitar.
Oh, wow.
Which may have been for the Rabbit King, because I believe we recorded in that closet
That's
for
right.
Rabbit King as well,
That's
before
right.
we moved to this closet.
Yeah, that was our third album, and our magnum opus, as it were.
The epic saga of Lucky Jack and Little Jackie saving Ireland.
Yeah, and it was this epic story, but also just how we recorded it was so different.
Absolutely.
Because we recorded it in sessions. We recorded, the first part, and I don't even know if the end was written when we recorded the first part.
It was, but we completely rewrote it because
parts 3 and 4.
Somehow along the way, we got to the part where the rabbits have the carrots, and they're gonna go back to Ireland and save all the people. And I had written in something about how they flew back over the wall with the help of pigeons or something.
Yeah.
And we decided, that's cool and all, but is there a way that we can make these rats stay in the story? And I think it was you who had the idea of what if the rat who they defeated comes back to help them in the end?
Yeah.
And we have that digger suddenly show up out of nowhere with the, I can do it. We rats can tunnel through anything. Or something to that effect. I don't even remember his voice anymore.
Yeah.
But then I remember after we recorded all the pieces and we started going back and editing and listening, that character's voice was different in every episode.
And so for almost a lot of the episodes, I don't know if we went... Did we even go back to some of the earlier ones and have you just do all the character voices in a go? So you went back and was like, okay, do all of your Lucky Jacks.
We did it with that character, and there was a part with Little Jackie where we did it.
Yeah.
Because the part where she's climbing and is terrified.
Yeah.
I was trying to do something different. I was trying to express that fear through her voice, but yet keep her voice. I was having a hard time doing it. I remember taking a significant amount of time going back and just doing that couple lines that she has when she's climbing over and over again. But the piece I really remember is that digger, that rat digger. I think that was the only name he ever had. It was just the digger.
Yeah,
and because his voice was so distinctive of going back through, and I remember sitting there with headphones and you telling me what the line was going to be so that I wouldn't hear the voice that was wrong, and get that in my head instead of the voice I was trying to do. And it was like an entire evening of just reciting all that character's lines, and you would be telling me through the headphones when you thought I got it right, and then we'd move to the next line.
Yeah, but I think what we really came to with that one was that I think that was the third episode of the Rabbit King. Buy the album, by the way. Bad props. It's good stuff. But in the third episode, where you had Lucky Jack, you had Little Jackie, you had the Digger, and you had the King.
Rat King.
So you had these 4 radically different voices.
Yes.
Radically, see what I did there?
I saw it.
Okay.
I heard it.
But it was just so hard to go back and forth for you that we really had to change how we recorded. And that was actually... Oh, wow, there's a reason the pros do it this way.
Yeah, to go through with almost... I think I went through the entire thing with just the narrator voice of here are all the lines. We'll set that aside as track 1, and then to go through, all right, give me all of Lucky Jack's lines. I'll do all of his with his voice. I'll get into my brogue, and I'll be doing Lucky Jack. Then, all right, give me Little Jackie. Well now, whatever, her voice was a little bit higher than that, but doing the brogue with the higher voice, now give me the Rat King. I don't even remember what I was doing for his voice. His voice was kind of annoying the first time, and I think we changed it a lot because it was just this high-pitched squeak that was kind of painful to listen to.
I still remember no, you can't have any.
No, you can't have them.
And that was a joke for so long.
Through the rest of the recording process.
But there was that, and then we sat down to do the music for it, and that was just so different. But that was actually one of my actual favorite musical experiences, was taking, the transitions from, okay, what are the emotions right now?
Yeah.
Okay, where do the emotions have to be next time? How do we make musical pieces that can flow from one to the other but be distinct?
And how are we going to make that transition? And I remember there being one point where we decided, I believe it's 3 into 4, where we decided something, and I just remember going home that night and messing around with my guitar, and the next morning when you picked me up, it was, all right, I have the chord progression, now we just need to figure out how this is going to change from 3 to 4.
Yeah.
And it was just the time signature was all we changed.
Yeah.
It was something really simple we changed, but it sounds so different when you go from that third track to the fourth track.
Yeah. And just also for both of us, because there were times where I played the acoustic guitar, you were playing acoustic guitar, we both played electric guitar, I played bass.
Yeah.
You played
I
drums.
played the baton.
Yeah. But that was...
It was really the first time with our recording that we were doing collaboration with music. Not just the recording and the playing, but even the writing as well.
Yeah.
There were times where I know I would say, all right, Toby, we need bass here. Here's what we're trying to do. Here's the emotion we're trying to get. Play something.
Yeah.
And you came up with something amazing. I think it's the end of track 2.
Right.
Where we've ended with kind of the dark cellar and all hope is lost. And you were playing this really dark tone on the bass. And I remember sitting down with the guitar, and for an hour or two, all right, how's this sound with what you're doing? How's this sound?
Yeah.
And I think eventually we narrowed it down to I'm playing 2 different chords, and that's it.
Or there was even one track, for me, it's just the rainy day track, looking down at the top of the wall.
Yeah.
Where just okay, do this with the bass. Okay, what else do we have to add to this? And usually, well, nothing really.
Nothing.
That's it? And it's like, yeah.
It sounds perfect without anything else. We're going to mess it up if we add more.
But this is really kind of jumping topics and jumping ahead a little bit and skipping over how we got from there to starting an episodic series. But that spirit of collaboration and open feedback
yes
was and is for me, I think, one of the best things about our process working together, be it an album, be it a short music spot for public television,
whatever it might be, right?
This weekly episode. I mean, the times that we just scrap ideas or tell each other we're full of something.
Right. That whatever you were trying to do, it's not working. Come up with something completely different. And as one artist to another, to not be offended by that brutal honesty of there have been several times I've come in here to record something and I come out of the booth and it's Mike, that story had no point to it. Really? Think about it. Oh yeah, you're right. All right. Well, what's good that we can keep?
Yeah, and we've had those times where hey, this didn't work, and we talk about how we can fix it. And those are like the 10-hour extravaganzas of okay, it's 2 a.m.
We should have stopped 4 hours ago.
But we got it.
Right.
Or oh, wow, yeah, this story needs more than we can do here.
We need a week to fix this story. What are you doing Saturday? We'll make it work then. But I think that flows very nicely into the idea of why did Coyote's Corner start?
Yeah.
We had just finished this album, The Rabbit King, that was this huge process. I feel like it was 3-4 months worth of work.
Yeah.
Multiple days per week, at least one day a weekend, sunk into making this album.
Yeah, I mean, we had like the schedule laid out. We need to get this done by this time. Yeah.
And so we had just finished that, and we wanted to still do recording. We had learned so much. Yep. We wanted to be moving forward. But gosh, that was a lot of work. And I think we both just wanted a break from hard work in the recording studio.
Yeah.
And one of us had the idea of, what if we just started recording short stories and spin them out on the internet?
Yeah, kind of like we'd both become involved at WSCA, Writers in the Round, True Tales. So this radio format, this regular, periodic outburst of creativity to the world at large was, I think, very much at the forefront in both of our minds.
And I think for me, what I really wanted was the examples that you gave, Writers in the Round, True Tales Radio. With the Writers in the Round, it's very much the talking about the process and the why. Why did you write this story? Why did it come out the way it did? And for me, that was something that I felt I had not seen something like that with storytelling. And to have that aspect of, here's the story, now here's why you should care about the story, or what does the story mean to me, the artist? What am I trying to communicate with this story?
Yeah, and I think that came out a lot also from, or synergized with, other collaborative words.
Yeah.
Where with our creative process, where we interact so much and can talk about it very openly, to take all of those really deep, great discussions about, well, what is a story? How can we bring that theme in here? Gosh, is this too dark? Gosh, is this too deep? If I change this one word in the first paragraph and that creates a link back to that second closing argument, is that too much? Is that too subtle? Or those editing conversations were really the most fun that you and I have with this.
Absolutely.
And to share that analysis and thought process, like the Writers in the Round, where so many of the listeners respond that, no, I don't care about the people singing. I mean, yeah, it's nice, but to hear the singer-songwriter talking to the poet, talking to the author about the creative process.
It's completely different artists talking about a very similar process to create their art, whatever form it might be taking. Or in some cases, a completely different process for a similar art. When you have three musicians, someone who sits down and writes 20 songs in an afternoon, as opposed to someone who agonizes over every word for months on end.
Exactly.
And they're both very successful at what they do. They just approach it very differently. And to have that conversation with a story, I think we both felt that would be really fascinating. And one way or another, it took the form of putting this out on the internet, putting it out to the YouTube audience.
And we started with just you and I'm still in some ways amused that, I'm not a professional storyteller. I don't bill myself as a storyteller. And somehow I ended up in this almost host-like role of just introducing the stories and interviewing you so many times.
Yeah, it was just the way it worked out. And originally we had the idea of, well, Mike, we could make up some questions. You could just sit there and talk, and we felt that's too contrived.
Yeah.
We need to have that actual conversation. And if I'm going to be answering the questions and talking about the story, well, it makes it hard for me to be the host and the artist at the same time.
And I think we originally had ideas or these grandiose visions of having a group of storytellers and working together, which...
having like a facilitated discussion. And so we had this idea of putting together this show. I think it was in September of 2 years ago that we had that conversation of, let's do this. Let's really do it. How are we going to make this work?
Yeah.
And starting to figure out, what is this even going to look like? And I remember at some point by October, we had a plan of, this is going to be the format. Here's how we're going to structure this. And laying out the schedule of how much we wanted to have done before the first episode.
Yeah, because then we scheduled that in of, okay, first Thursday of the year. Hey, that's January 1st.
Let's do it. That makes sense.
Yeah.
And I think it was mid-October we started recording the first episodes.
Yeah, so then we had a buffer.
Looking that far ahead.
Yeah.
And there could be a time when we're not able to record for a month or two because one of us is out of town or something. And it won't be a problem. We'll have 4 or 5 episodes already recorded, and by the summertime we were scrambling to make deadlines because we had used it all up or something.
But yeah, no, we had it all alternated out to different categories. Like, okay, so here's a kid's story, here's a Native American, this is a serious one. Okay,
let's throw a true story in there.
Yeah,
and getting that rotation, and then we started bringing other people in about August or September of the actual production year when we were actually producing episodes and putting them out there.
Because it was probably late spring where you and I kind of got together. It was like, so you need to write a lot of stories. What's going on? How can we spice this up? We've gotten into a rhythm.
Yeah.
And that's good in some ways. I mean, we know how to set up the studio. We can get everything done. We know what works, what doesn't. But I'm bored.
Yeah, there really was that constant question of, what can we do next? How can we challenge ourselves as not just artists, but as producers and engineers?
Yeah. And that gets back to a lot of, we've always been learning with something.
Yes.
And that was something that came up. I think over beer, we might have been downstairs at 7th Settlement. We might have been at La Festa, or we could have just been drinking out of bottles here at my kitchen table. At that time, I was like, we haven't learned anything these past few episodes.
Yeah.
And just how crushing that was.
It was, of that this is getting really hard for both of us because we're not learning anything
It's
anymore.
just become routine. And I think that's where we figured, like, all right, well, let's get other people in. We had this big idea about a conversation between storytellers about stories.
Yeah.
Let's do it.
And we discovered that getting people into a studio is a little harder than meets the eye.
Yeah.
But we were able to get one person over here.
And then another, yeah.
And then another, and then another. And we were able to get some good stories from other people and get some great experiences and learn how to really work with a completely different person and how that changed so much.
It really did. So much of that studio dynamic changes. I mean, when you and I sit down to record, I count on 3 takes.
At least.
I mean, it's first take is a garbage take. We save it anyway.
I was warming up.
Yep. Okay, second take. All right, groundwork. Third take. Cool. All right, we got 2, I want to say solid takes. That's a good day. So I have 2 solid takes and the warm-up take.
Usually between these 2 solid takes, enough can be spliced together.
Yeah.
There's the story in its entirety. Yeah. Great.
All right, well, some polish areas, cool, whatever. But when someone else comes in...
Different expectations.
Yeah. They're just like, all right, I told my story. We're done here, right? Oh, you want to interview me? Yeah, we talked about that in the email. Do you want to do another take?
No. It was great. It was great. All right. And just the difference in expectations was very striking at times.
Yeah, and how that eventually translated even into me editing, where I don't want to say I went through with guests with I really don't want to say a lower expectation, but to know that they're listening with a different level of critical analysis of their own work.
And I think part of it is that you and I have worked with recording a lot.
Yeah.
I did a lot of audio work in college, part-time. That was my job. And both of us have trained ourselves to hear what the average person does not hear when they listen. Because they're too busy listening to the subject and enjoying the subject that they don't notice that subtle word that was used or the way their tone shifted. There was one guest we had in here where I pointed out that his accent changed for half the story.
Yeah.
And it wasn't until I said that he noticed it.
Yep.
And it's okay that you didn't notice that. I noticed it because I've trained myself to notice that sort of stuff for my own benefit.
Yeah.
And so we would listen very differently with people, and in a way, when it came to the editing to their expectations, whether they were the same or different than ours.
And the word didn't come up often when we started Coyote's Corner, but of podcast.
Yeah.
I mean, we really thought of it as a web-based radio show, which everybody out there who's listening to this will like, no kidding, you guys, it's a podcast.
Right.
But we didn't come to that as soon as you did. Thank you for your patience.
It's just because of how our brains work.
But as I started listening to other podcasts, I mean, okay, if you want to talk about Radio Lab, holy cow, top-notch quality production. That's not your standard podcast.
No, it's not.
I listen to other podcasts like about board games, low player count, Mad Props guys, by the way. And the production value is so different than, say, Radiolab, or so different from what you and I were aspiring to.
Yes.
Where it was this crisp quality, CD quality, or I'm being optimistic here, folks, bear with me. But this really clean studio sound. And to listen to other podcasts, this genre that we were working in without really knowing it, and it just doesn't regularly exist there.
Yeah.
That was so shocking to me, of just wow, we are devoting so much time and energy into polishing
up the sound.
Yeah, to polishing this product that people might listen to once.
Right, and maybe they're going to notice the difference. Maybe they won't. I remember at one point you had me listen to something that you had just listened to and were baffled by. And it was okay, start listening to this. And at first you hear all the crackles and pops, but how, as you listen, it disappears. You don't even hear it anymore because your brain is filtering it out. And so why were we working so hard to remove that when there was a good chance our audience was going to conditionally not hear it?
Yeah, and that was part of a change for us.
Yeah. One of the many things that we learned along the way.
That, hey, we are devoted to a product and a production level that is not congruent with the media we're working in.
Yeah.
That was really interesting.
Yeah. That we're putting all this time and energy into something that we probably don't need to be putting it into.
But neither of us would say, well, let's just lower production values.
Yeah, instead we kept getting a new piece of equipment that would let us get a cleaner sound without as much work.
Exactly. So, we've already said that this is the last episode. That was one of the things that I won't say caused it, because if we were really fulfilling all of our goals or missions that we set out to do, building community and getting people in and having these discussions about storytelling and spreading storytelling, putting the time and effort into a high quality audio production wouldn't be a problem. So what else led to this end?
I think there were a couple other things. For me, one thing that definitely led to I don't know if I want to do this anymore, was the realization that I've told some of my best stories, some of my favorite stories to tell. They're out there. They're great. We've done that episode. I've gotten to a point where if I want to tell a story, I got to write a new one for it.
Yeah.
And while I love creating new stories, I created 2 this weekend while I was at a Renaissance fair.
Yeah.
On the spot, because there were children who need to be entertained, and it just happened. At the same time, to create something for a show like Coyote's Corner, that's an investment of time and energy.
Again, that value that we put in the stories that we record. It has to be a good story. It has to be a complete story. It has to mean something.
Yeah, and I want there to be a purpose to this story, because I'm going to sit down and talk to an audience about why this story exists. And I don't want my answer to be, well, I needed a story for this week, so I wrote one.
Well, thanks for listening, everyone.
I hope you enjoyed it.
Yeah.
I would like to think that most of the stories I've told here on Coyote's Corner, they have some substance to them. Whether there's a moral to them or not, there's at least I sat down and told this story for a reason, with a purpose, and there's something that you as the audience can get out of this story.
Yeah.
And creating that kind of story, that can take weeks. And with our production schedule of 2 a month, 1 every other week, there's not enough time.
Yeah. That also gets back to like the Ulster cycle, where it's not even so much writing, it's research and editing and understanding
what is the essence of this story? Which piece do I tell next? Well, here's 8 different versions of the next piece. Yeah. My goodness. How do I make this work with what I've told already and what I want to tell later with this story?
Yeah.
Which elements do I need? That alone is a week-long process. Never mind the telling it to myself, practicing, rehearsing, so that I can come into the studio and do it in 3 takes.
And especially where Coyote's Corner is just 2 guys sitting in a sound booth. We don't make money from this.
Yeah.
And that's a huge investment of time, especially for you with that writing, that research.
Yeah.
On top of, the last episode we did, the last real story episode we did, was about your beep kickball program and how that's been taking up more of your time.
Yeah, and how I raced home from a beep kickball program today to prepare for tonight.
Yeah.
Tonight's recording of that. Both of us have less and less time to dedicate to this project. And I think one of the deciding factors that we need to end this is the knowledge that we're not going to be able to give this show the time that it needs to be as good as we want it to be.
Exactly.
And if we can't do that, maybe we shouldn't be doing it.
Yeah, and on the drive over here, we had so many different ideas about, well, what will this last episode be?
How are we going to end it?
I mean, we had thought about, you introducing and me telling the story of Coyote's Corner, and from, recording in the kitchen at Baker Street all the way up to us sitting here in this
very nice closet.
It is a nice closet, but it is a closet, our recording booth. All along we had talked about me doing a story of some kind.
At some point we had talked about doing it as an April Fool's joke and Toby would tell the story about something ridiculous.
Or doing it as a retrospective 2 years in, or something like that. But ultimately, all of these things conspired towards, now is the right time. We don't have the time to devote to Coyote's Corner to make it what it needs to be. We don't have the energy to really put into this thing that I think you and I both love.
It is a lot of fun getting together and doing these episodes.
Right, and it's great fun to get people in to talk about their stories, but there's so much energy involved with that all around. And
it really keeps coming back to the time and energy commitment.
Right, and we're not willing to half-ass it. So it started off as this crazy idea over beer. And, a few weeks ago, you and I sat down and, well, it ended like it started. We ended this crazy idea over a few beers. So, well, to our audience out there, thank you for joining us on our journey. We're going to raise our final glasses to Coyote's Corner. We'd ask you to do the same. It's been a great trip. Thank you so much for tuning in. And hey, and as always, don't forget to like, favorite,
share, subscribe. So you never miss anything. What's going on here at Coyote's Corner?
Because you never know what will pop up, and
there might be more someday.
There might not.
But it'll be fun one way or another.
And the content will always be here, and so will we. Cheers.
Prost.